Hello, my name is George. This is GLLR Cars. Welcome to the channel. Today we're talking Mercedes Benz GLC 300. The Mercedes Benz GLC 300 is the second larger SUV. There's a smaller size. This is the one that comes next. There's a GLA. The GLC is the one that comes after that, and it is, I would say, a medium-sized SUV, more like a crossover SUV. And we're going to take a look at what makes this Mercedes Benz special. Why is it that it is so popular? This one here is one of the ones that Mercedes-Benz started banking on. It's selling like hotcakes for Mercedes-Benz. So why is that? Why is it so popular? What makes it such a good product? So let's start with the outside of the car. The Mercedes-Benz has that typical 3-point star, that unmistakable look. That, and in the case of this car, by the way, it does not have all the bells and whistles. So this one it doesn't have the like the sensors that some of the other ones will have right here. It does have the parking sensors down here. If you look here, there's one there, down there, as well as on the other side. But other than that, there are no cameras in the front. It does offer it with cameras in the front. But the look, just stepping back for a little bit and looking at the front look, it is an attractive look. I think it is a very appealing vehicle, and the combination of the chrome and the area where the bumper color meets the rest of the color of the car makes it look a lot more high-end than those cars where it puts a bumper. Sometimes it's even a plastic bumper, and it just really doesn't. Not only does it not go well, it doesn't match the color of the car. In the Mercedes products, you're always going to see that. The lights, which are LED lights, are very high-end. You'll see in most Mercedes products, it has this curved light here in addition to the big headlights that are down below it. And it's not a type of headlight that you're going to see that it's going to be very bright on your eyes when you're looking at it and the car is driving. From the point of view of a pedestrian or someone that's outside, it's only going to see a little bit of a light, but if you're on the other side of it, it actually is quite bright, so it has a very nice effect when you're behind one of those lights. Moving on to this, looking at the wheels here, is the dual spoke wheels that they have in some of the other Mercedes products. Very appealing. It's got logos for Mercedes in the centerpiece of the wheels there, which, by the way, it's got logos in a few other places, like in addition to the 3-point star, it also has the logo right there on the top of the hood. It's got the lines on the hood. So again, the appeal of the vehicle is quite good. So I understand when it comes to the look and the appearance, it does appeal to me as well. And I usually don't consider myself an SUV person, but if I had to drive one, I wouldn't feel like I'm driving something that is not appealing. Moving on to all the side panels and the doors, they didn't take a whole lot of time to over-engineer the look here. There is somewhat of a curvature that runs towards the top panel. It curves down and it has an unmistakable line that runs across the other end of the car. But other than that, there really isn't a whole lot more of design features here that you can point out. In the back, one of the things that I like is that it doesn't have, they don't try to do too much with it. As you can see, it's very simple, it is very clean. It's the lines and the curves are very smooth on how the lights wrap around the side. Down at the bottom, if you look at the exhaust tips, it's very nice how the chrome that covers the exhaust tips kind of matches the curves that go around those panels in the back. and the flow of those curves, it almost looks like the way that they designed it. They wanted to make sure that nothing will be sticking out like a sore thumb. So there really isn't. If you look at the overall design of the car, there really is nothing that sticks out as that's out of place, or they were trying to over-engineer something or anything like that. Again, a very appealing car from the outside. Now let's talk a little bit about the inside. I'm about to step into the inside, but one thing to point out before going in is there is a feature in pretty much most Mercedes. I think all the Mercedes have it, where the side mirrors will fold based on a setting that you do inside. So when you lock the car, it'll fold the side mirror, so one's going to nick it when it's parked in a tight spot. And to unlock that, or to basically disable that and make sure that they retract, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One is by using the key fob, pressing a button, and it unlocks the car and the mirrors will retract. The other way is, just like in many of the other Mercedes products, you do have the lock button in that position. Put your hand in there and the mirror extends. So it's a 2-in-1, and again, to lock it back, it's just touching that spot right there, and then it will lock back up. Again, a nice feature. It's I wouldn't say it's gimmicky. I think it does have a good purpose. If you have a car that it goes into a tight spot, or let's say that you having to park it at work in a place where the spots are a little bit tight and you don't want someone to nick your mirrors or anything like that, at least you have a little bit of assurance that they at least engineered this. It's not unique to Mercedes. There's many other cars that have it, but it's good to point out. Now let's talk about the inside. So look in the inside. The choice of colors for the wooden trims on the doors and the light beige leather color is a very nice color scheme on this particular car. I like that the pockets in the doors are very big and generous. You have a couple of bottle type spots there, and they run very deep even on this side as well. Just like many other Mercedes products, all of your controls for the seats are on the door. You got the ability to warm up your seat there, and by the way, you can also fold the mirrors by hand using that button. The only thing that you have actually on the seat to make an adjustment is that one little knob there that it is electronic and is for lumbar support. The leathers inside are very soft, as expected. The dashboard is very clean. The center console is very clean. Mercedes has always supplied a cover, you're stepping inside, where if you look at this cover here, it's not a flat cover, it's got a curve to it. When you just press it and it softly opens and it retracts back a little bit to expose the cup holders. You can tell that they took the time to make it look at the flow of the curves of this center console right here. So very soft, very smooth, very good design. So in terms of design, no complaints here. In fact, the infotainment with the exposed screen outside, Mercedes was one of the first ones to do that, if not the first one to do that. So many other car makers are doing that today. BMW is doing that, Mazda is doing that, Acura is doing that. Many other cars are doing this and taking a cue from, hey, if Mercedes is doing it, they're getting it right, we might as well try it and see if we can make our cars look as good as Mercedes does. So if you're being copied, that's the best type of compliment that you can get. Turn the car on, I just have a regular key fob, and this one does not have to push start. Believe it or not, Mercedes offers that as an option based on the trim level that you have. So just insert the actual key fob in there and turn it. And the first comment regarding the instrument cluster is, like many other Mercedes products, it has, it'll roll the AC a little bit there. It was getting a little loud, excuse the noise from the AC vents there. But it does have the analog controls with the digital control in the center. I reviewed, in fact, one of the cars in the GLLR Cars fleet is a Mercedes Benz E-Class. It's an E350 that has a very similar layout. What's different here is that the rims that just hug the instrument cluster, or at least the two gauges that are analog, are somewhat recessed, or the gauges are rather recessed, and then the rim comes all the way out here by the edge of the shade that the instrument cluster has. The shade that comes here, so you don't get all the glare from the sun. So they extended this kind of far as opposed to the one on the E-Class. But by the way, the reason that this one has it like this is because it doesn't have the option. There is actually an option where this entire instrument cluster area is nothing different than, say, a screen like this that extends all the way across, and then it wraps around and comes into the center console where there's a second screen. So it's a contiguous screen if you look at some of the ones that have that option. And I think it is a very good design, and doing away with analog gauges is a matter of taste. But for me, for my taste, I do like digital. You can do a lot more with it. You can do a lot more changes, and you can configure it based on software, which is my preference. In terms of the infotainment system, the way that it is controlled on this one, again, it doesn't have the dual screen. If it had the dual screen with the newer system, it would have the touch controls here, but this one is not a touch screen. So the way to operate this is with the knob, similar to the way that BMW has it. Now on this 2019 model, they do have the larger knob, and it's a little more comfortable to operate than the smaller one. They also have the option of it almost looks like a mouse that kind of goes over and it kind of stops like right a few inches above it, and you get to put your hand on it, and it's more like a touchpad, but it's kind of wraps around your hand. Again, it's a matter of choice. I prefer the wheel. If it were up to me, I would not order that other control that goes right on top. Actually, ultimately a touchscreen, but I understand why having a knob is very helpful, because if I turn that, I get to look at various vehicle operations. This one in particular is a system that's been around for a few years, and they've only added more features to it. A few more things to talk about now that we're talking about the center console is, interestingly, how the volume control for the media is actually right there next to the knob. It's not a position that I would normally look for it, but that's where they put it. This dynamic button right here is the one that adjusts the driving mode. So before I flip it, I want to show you here on the center screen. I move it up, I can go from sports mode to sports plus. You can individualize the driving mode. You can go to comfort mode or eco mode. I'll leave it on sports. That's what I had it, and or have it by default. But it does give you the ability to adjust the driving mode. You got your right there, the slip control. You have your manual mode here, and this is the automatic start and stop, and this is to actually turn off the media screen. So again, when it comes to the layout, very good job in having all of the curves that flow with the car. And in terms of space, very big glove compartment there. I already showed you what it looks like in here with the two cup holders and the 12-volt charger there. If you look at the center console here, the center storage area has the button here as opposed to the other E-Class where you had to pull a little lever. Now it's button-like, similar to what BMW does now, and it's very generous as well for this car. It does have the USB controls there, and it does have a little pocket here where you get to insert a card for, say, you're going to have navigation system. This one doesn't, but it would have a card there that has all of your maps. Now, looking in the back is very important to point out that what makes an SUV important is the ability to carry other passengers, how comfortable those passengers would be if they're riding in the back seat is a very important buying decision if you're getting an SUV. So let's take a look in the back. In fact, before I even step inside, one thing to point out is if you compare the length of that rear door with the front door, it's almost just as long. Usually if you look at many other cars, look at the length of that front door and compare it to the length of the rear door, and you usually can tell right away without having to measure anything that front door is usually longer. Well, not in this case. Outside from that corner where the wheel well is, where they have to cut it that way, it is in fact very long. I can tell that if I extend my arm, I don't quite reach the other side. But anyway, stepping inside, the same level of materials to be consistent with the outside. Now this chair is all the way, well, maybe not all the way back, but it's for my driving position. And if I step inside, the height was ideal. The distance from the back of this chair to my knees is about a little bit more than 4 inches. And then one thing to point out is you can see how they cut this rear seat so that it has these indentations to give you even more leg space. Then let's taking a look at the head, like just head space is extremely comfortable. I have more than 6 or 7 inches above my head, and that's pretty much as good as it's gonna get. The distance that it has behind the back of the knees is maybe not as big as one of the larger SUVs, but it does reach quite out. They don't try to shorten it where you'll see like maybe like you see that in some pickup trucks. Well, they'll do that, but very generous, very comfortable. The back of the seat pockets, instead of being just little nets or whatnot, it is a retractable hard like material. It's almost like a soft leather material where it has like these strings here that retract, so when you let go it snaps back in place, and it does allow you to put quite a bit of stuff in there. Very nice. You got your AC vents in the back, which by the way, that knob that you can turn is just to be able to shut them off if you don't want air coming here into the back. And then last but not least, you have your connectors here. You have your regular 115 volt connector and your 12 volt connector, which is the round 12 volt type. I like the fact that it's retractable, so you can put it away if you don't need it, and it's out of the way and not near the feet of any passenger that needs to sit all the way in the, like, sit in the center. So now let's talk about this center armrest area, which is retractable, and I do like that in many cars. Comes up, you got an armrest area that has cup holders. So it has cup holders, and they're a little bit over engineered where they retract by pushing into them, and then where the cup goes is this little plastic floor, like retractable floor, like where the bottle or the cup will go into. It's okay. Again, I think it's a little over engineered, but it gets the job done. The other thing to point out, it does have a little storage console if you press this button here. Not very deep, but you can get a few small items in there. Very good job in terms of how versatile it is back here. Something important for any SUV buyer is the storage capability for, let's say, your hatch area. So if you're looking for a mid-size crossover and you want to understand, well, how generous is that storage area in the hatch? Well, let's take a look at that. Again, you can open it by using the key fob, and it has like any other key fob, the trunk opener button. Also has a handle that is a little bit hidden. It's like right under the Mercedes logo. Got a handle there, and it actually has a button that if you press it there, it does open automatically. I like the automatic opening doors, and it's just, you know, you can even make it hands-free where you can use your feet where you put your foot under the bumper and make it open. In the case of this one, let's looking at just the storage area that it has in here. Very generous for a car this size, although it has a not too high of a loading distance, or the height rather, for loading any items. It is very flat, which is very convenient. It does offer, you know, some of the connectors in here. It has the buttons for folding the seats that are immediately in front of it, so it can give you more storage. It has this privacy cover, which I'm partial to that, especially when you have an open car and it's time to buy a lot of gifts for Christmas or whatnot, and there's going to be always bad guys looking around. Is always to have that privacy. And then last but not least, we do have a lockable, in this case it's unlocked, but a lockable storage area under this floor. And Although there's nothing here, it's just some junk in there, but you can put some tools, you can put certain items in there. It's very good. I like that very much. So it does have a lot of options. To close it back up, you have the buttons to either, right there on the tip, to either close it and lock it or just close it. And again, it's automatic, so I like those options in this car. The acceleration is very responsive, a lot more than I expected for a car with only 241 horsepower, and in addition to that, being an SUV. So it's very responsive and is punchy. I'm still surprised to say this, but when I punch it, it does punch you back a little bit. Don't expect to win any races with this car. At least we do get a enjoyable driving experience from an acceleration perspective. When it comes to the steering, it is unmistakable that you are in a Mercedes Benz product when you feel that the steering is very precise. The amount of feedback that you have with the wheels in the front is, I would say, in my opinion, second to none. From the cars that I've driven, this is unmistakable, one of the better ones out there. So the steering is as good as it gets, and again, this is not a performance car. This is an SUV. For Mercedes to do this level of precision on the steering, where if I move it even a quarter inch, the wheels will move, I would imagine, an appropriate amount to the amount that you're moving the wheel, even as subtle as a quarter inch. So it is very predictable in terms of what you do when you're turning. The ride quality, for as expected for an SUV of this size, is very comfortable. It is a very smooth ride, but not too soft. It is smooth, but it still have a certain amount of stiffness to make sure that it's not going to have bad handling. The handling, on the other hand, of course, it's not to be expected for the type of handling that you will get in a sports car, but it is good handling. It is a type of handling that at least you don't feel like the car rolled over a whole lot. It is a good compromise. And as many cars that now need to figure out where's the sweet spot for handling like this car seems to get it right, seems to get the right recipe for good handling and good ride quality. The turning radius on this SUV is not very short. It's not a small turning radius. It is probably on par with many other SUVs, and that's probably because of the length of the wheelbase. I do see that the tires do turn quite a bit, but having a long wheelbase negates the ability for the car to turn on a dime. In terms of visibility, one of the reasons why SUVs are very popular nowadays is because visibility is so much better than that of a sedan, sports car, you name it. SUVs and well, pickup trucks for that matter, they have the raised up view. It's got a high view. That's, even though this SUV is not extremely high, it is still a higher view than if I were in a regular car. And the windows are very big. I'm surrounded by glass everywhere. If you look around, pretty much surrounded by glass everywhere. And the position, the driving position, has a lot of adjustments because the seats adjust, the wheel adjusts, and with all the different adjustment levels there that they are available, I am sure that one could find the sweet spot. I found mine. And for an average size individual, I would think that most individuals on a car of this size will find a good, comfortable riding position. The comfort level in terms of the materials that are used in the interior are, as expected, Mercedes Benz quality, and very soft leather materials. Even the steering wheel leather is a very soft material. The leather that they use for instance, the on the dash area is maybe it's not as soft, but it's not like the hard plastic that you would expect in a car of a lower price point. In terms of the transmission, the way I can describe the transmission is this way. Don't expect the level of performance that you would get from a sports car in the transmission. However, for an SUV, the responsiveness of the transmission, the way in which it detects when you're punching it and it lowers the gears and then it moves back up is predictable, it is good, it is adequate, and to make matters even better, they provide paddle shifters, which do give you the ability to make those adjustments manually on your own as needed without having to go to a center stack. Well, in the case of the Mercedes, there really is no center stack. The shifter is a stock shifter, and that will be very awkward to be changing gears that way. So if what you're looking for is good transmission for an SUV style, it's as good as it gets. If you're looking for transmission for a performance style automobile, then you need to look elsewhere. But I would imagine that with the exception of some high performing SUVs like the Porsches, there's a new Lamborghini that has an SUV, the very high performing SUVs, that's a different kind of customer. The kind of customer that will be looking for the performance out of a luxury SUV may not have those demands from the acceleration and transmission that a car such as this would offer. The GLC 300 is not a very powerful SUV. It's only a 4-cylinder engine, inline 4, 2.0 liter turbocharged. The driving experience proved that it does have surprising punch to it despite having a small engine. The fact that it's very convenient, it's got a lot of space, even though it's a mid-size SUV, proves that it is versatile, that you can do quite a bit with it. It's obviously like any other SUV, a daily driver. It is a luxurious car, yet it doesn't break the bank for a Mercedes Benz. A car like this, the MSRP starts at a little over $40,000. So I've reviewed other cars that have a similar price point. In fact, I reviewed a car that was an SUV that had a similar price point, and it was not a luxury SUV. So something like this, if you need an SUV and it's still not going to break the bank, and you still want to have a few luxury features, yeah, it does have a 4-cylinder engine, but as the driving experience proved, it was pretty good. And as such, I would say, you know, good looking SUV, good price, good features. I don't mind a car such as this. Therefore, I recommend it. My name is George. This is GLLR Cars. And as always, drive safe.